Ladies and gentlemen, Oasters across the planet, it is our honor and our pleasure to bring to you, for the first time on the O Show radio program, a man who has redefined an entire era in this business. A man who a lot of youngsters grew up wanting to be just like. And they found out that really, really hurts.
No doubt.
A man who transcended the business in so many different ways by becoming a best-selling author and showing that the heavyweight champion of the world doesn't have to fit into this cookie-cutter little mold.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, former WWF heavyweight champion, former TNA world champion, and a man who's done just about everything there is to do in the professional wrestling industry, Mrs. Foley's baby boy. Have a nice day. It's Mick Foley. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great, except for the fact that when I was telling the story about Steve Miller to you guys, I thought we were on the air. That was like a classic story.
You know what? We were actually recording that for the benefit of our audience. We'll stick it in at the end as a little bonus.
Yeah, play it later.
That will definitely be in there.
We'll do that. It's a good little story. How are you, Mr.
I appreciate that.
How are you, Mr. Foley?
Oh man, I'm good. I'm good, and I know this show came up kind of quickly for me. You guys are going to fill in the blanks about the big show I'm doing in New Brunswick.
Let's do it right now.
August 26th. Yeah, let's get that out of the way. I mean, we'll come back to it.
That's
but
right.
I don't want to come on the show, forget to talk about the reason I was here.
Yes.
And it sounds really interesting. I'd be lying if I said I knew all the details, but I imagine you guys do.
Mick Foley just signed, ladies and gentlemen, to be part of CWI's last show of the East Coast Tour.
Crazy.
And that is on August 26th at the Harbor Station Arena in St. John, New Brunswick. It's going to be a huge show, the biggest one on the tour.
Yeah.
And Mick Foley has just signed to be part of that event. What he's going to do, we're not quite... It's really up to him. He might come in and just kill everybody.
We don't know yet. What you're going to do, brother? I think I have the Hulkster to thank for this booking. Am I correct?
Hulkster's been involved with us in the past, and he I'm sure will be involved with us in the future again at some point. I don't know exactly when, but I know when I was talking to you, Mick, about this spot, I said, yeah, we're the guys that had Hulk Hogan with us. Oh, that was you. You're the guys.
You know what? Honestly, for a guy who hasn't done too many independent shots,
right?
In the recent year, I may do them here and there. It's hard to know who the credible people are.
Right.
There are some bad people, and not bad people, but people who overshoot, dreamers and gamblers who think that they put a name on the card, they're going to automatically draw a big house, and then they some of them are almost suicidal when things don't work out their way.
True.
But, you guys now have the track record of attracting some really big names, and I know because I talked to the Hulkster after he did your show. It was the first independent that he had done in decades, and he enjoyed it. So when I heard the slot was available, I said, brother,
he said, brother.
I'll take it, man. I'll take it.
Yeah. And again, all the credit for the Hulk Hogan association with CWI goes to the promoter, Nick Nitro Wyman, and an amazing coup for the company, and no small feat either to be saying that we're bringing in the hardcore legend.
No way.
That is going to be awesome.
It wasn't. I said this one time on Twitter. I don't know if once you say it, if people commit it to memory, or if there's just so many tweets out there that none of it really makes a difference. But honestly, one of the things I really liked about the last several months in TNA was being able to. I really had never known Hulk Hogan. I'd seen him a couple dozen times, but I had no real rapport beyond just saying hello, how are you doing? And honestly, getting to know him a little bit was one of the major high points for me of the last few months I was there.
I got it, and I told this story the week after we had the show where Hulk was with us in Brantford, Ontario, and I said, I've heard stories for years about Hulk Hogan and how he is in the locker room and what really goes on, and obviously I didn't have that firsthand information. And then when we're backstage and we're trying to figure out what's going to happen that night, and I looked at Hulk and I said, so what are you comfortable doing tonight? And he goes, what do you want to do, brother?
Right.
I'm like, what do I want to do? You're Hulk Hogan. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
I've heard all these things too, and I thought he was a very laid back guy.
Totally.
I thought he was really easy to work with, and even though things didn't work out great for me in the end, I'm really glad I had the chance to do the one in ring.
Yeah,
I did two. The last two were with him, and the one of them was pretty intense. And anybody who says they're not like a fan
right.
or a mark for Hogan in some way has not done a promo next to him. Because if you don't get a little more excited, and I had done one with ECW, but there was like 15 guys in the ring. But anyone who doesn't get excited about doing an interview with the Hulk is either kidding themselves or they're in the wrong business.
Totally.
Well said. Let me ask you this. You mentioned TNA and how you finished up there with Hulk. What exactly did happen with you and TNA? And
Oh, wait, hold on, I'm sorry. My mother's calling me for dinner. I got.
And that's the end of that.
All righty then.
I was like, Mom's not calling. Your mother's not calling for dinner. You know what? There are things that are perfect fits, and that was not. My being in there was not a perfect fit for the last year or so. And after I left kind of abruptly, I was like, I maybe should have tried to squeeze into those pants. Like maybe they weren't perfect, but I probably could have tolerated them. Them meaning the pants. I'm using
right.
Ridiculous jeans thing. Like I had lost faith in the company a little bit. And anybody who had seen, for example, my tweets.
Yes.
Which, it's kind of a dumb thing to do, to be, tweeting pro WWE stuff and especially the empty arena tweet. At that point, even Congressman Anthony Weiner texted me and he was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "You don't do that stuff." And, and it came, if I could take back one thing, it would be that tweet, which hurt a lot of feelings and probably hastened my exit. So it was by a couple of months, but there was no question that there was no question I was not going to be returning. But I think they just had too many non-wrestling talkers.
Yeah.
And I was just like another guy doing it.
Right.
I think they should have made that decision a couple of weeks before I went out there as a network. But some people, sometimes you don't appreciate things until after they're gone. And it wasn't until after that was over that I was like, wait a second. I think it was the exact day that I would have gotten my check in the mailbox, and it wasn't there. I was like, and no, it was actually, and I wrote a thing about this, that a lot of people read. It was a good place to work, and I probably should have, it wasn't exactly what I thought the show should be, but at a certain point I should have just shut up and worked instead of trying to turn it into something what I thought it should be.
Is that one of the intrinsic problems? You mentioned that the fact that there's a lot of non-working names that are there, and obviously that leads to a programming issue where Total Nonstop Action has stopped because we're doing a lot of promos because those guys aren't going to work.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, do a lot of those veteran influences, Mick, want to have a hand in the cooking? And does that sort of slow things down because everybody wants to put their 2 cents in?
You know what? I honestly don't know because I never attended a production meeting. And
really?
Probably, I never attended a production meeting. So I probably, it was kind of telling about, my commitment.
Gotcha.
I really probably should have known everything I possibly could. But I was content to just do my thing. I know Russo has a lot of detractors, but he always liked writing stuff for me, and I was always confident that they would come up with stuff that if I didn't like, I could tweak a little bit, and B, I was confident in knowing that, like even if they took me off TV, I was very flexible as to how much they wanted me on the show, and I honestly thought I should have been on it, less than when I was on, but. Again, it wasn't a perfect situation, but I should have appreciated it a little more while I was there.
Hey Mick, sorry, I just wanted to ask real quick because I've read your books and I know that you've done your thing pencil to paper. And as a writer myself, a songwriter, I'm still on that old school tip. Do you find that tweeting, like you're big on this tweeting thing, and I'm finding like tweets is becoming such a major part of pro wrestling angles now, even on television and in the real world. How much are you now up on the technology since I've read those books that you hand wrote? And do you feel that this is helping the industry? Because the industry, as you obviously know, seems to be moving into a new era as of late.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a double-edged sword because on one hand,
gets you in trouble.
Everybody has an avenue for expressing themselves, but that's not always the greatest thing in the world. As my empty arena tweet, shows.
You can't untweet.
What's that? Go ahead.
I just said you can't really untweet.
You can't undo it. I mean, that's like I said the other day. I said, I pulled a wiener, not to think of the congressman. Because I met him several years ago at a charity hockey game, which Y2J stole the show in, and he was actually a really good guy. But I mean, that's I think it's fair to say if someone puts something out there that they didn't mean to, that they think they're direct messaging, that's pulling a wiener. And unfortunately, it's just something with JB where. I was talking to JB about some of the great song and / wrestler names that he asks his followers for, and so it wasn't like anything bad. And I was actually telling him, hey, I think I was telling him that the comedy I did was fun and that he should check out my rendition of Sweet Home Alabama on YouTube. And then I tweeted that today. I was smart enough to realize that no one would care about a tweet coming on Sunday night. Or Monday or Tuesday with everybody talking about the events at WWE. So I put it out there today. But again, it's positive in that it allows guys to express themselves. But I was lucky. For my birthday, my wife asked me to stop tweeting for a week just to prove I could. And,
wow!
And it was tough to go cold turkey, but after a few days, it's like, this is what life is like.
Right, exactly.
So,
interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it in moderation.
Mick Foley's an addicted
I'll
tweeter.
say this. I have a Twitter account. I'm not a Twitterer. I never do post anything other than what comes automated from our Facebook feed. I don't actually tweet any. Dan's a big tweeter. I don't know if Frank tweets. Frank has no friends. But I know this much. There was a tweet that Mick Foley put out, I guess it was a couple days ago now, Mick, where you said, in reference to CM Punk, it's the first time in your life you've ever been jealous of someone's character. And I know I'm sort of taking that, I'm not saying that verbatim, I'm summing it up, but can you expand on that?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, he is so good right now. His character is so deep, and he does it so well because it's largely not a character, but he largely is who he is. That I got to my hotel room. I had a long drive from Burlington, Vermont, so I missed the show. And when I heard how great it was, I sent Punk. Again, the tweeting's good for the guy, or texting. I texted Punk, and he got back to me like in 2 minutes, and I was like, "Wow, I must be special because this guy's on top of the world." And he still, thinks like we had a back and forth, little. Texting conversation, and I said, "Man, this, congratulations." I said, "You just became the biggest name in the business." Absolutely. He did. You know what? I mean, he was able to do something with that story and with his abilities in the ring and on the microphone that completely revitalized wrestling in the sense that. Even people who watched it before are now more excited about it.
Right.
And in my case, Raw became something that I went from liking and enjoying with my kids when I could find the time to watch it to something that I felt like I absolutely had to watch. And I can't remember the last time that I was like, I called my wife over. I was like, look, you got to watch this thing, the thing with Vince and Triple H. So he has, I think he and WWE have made the show and that character just like must see TV is a cliche, but it feels like something I really have to see. I think it's kind of telling that this was the first pay-per-view I ever ordered on a replay. You know, like
Wow.
I went years with it. You know, why would I order a pay? You know, why would I order a wrestling pay-per-view? It seems almost unprincipled. You would do that as an ex-wrestler.
Right.
I've folded, but you know, I've given in. My kids love it. It's you know,
Right.
it is what wrestling should be. It's a
Yeah.
Sure.
good part of their lives. You know, they get a lot of enjoyment out of it, and that, you know, the $45 or $39 is not too much to pay. But this is the first time I ever ordered a replay just so I could see it. And you know, when you get a notorious cheapskate like me to spend $5 on a match that's already taken place, I think you've accomplished something. So again,
Well said.
hats off. My hats off to him, because that's the biggest. I mean, it's the biggest story I can remember in years.
We talked about this on the first segment of the show, where the thing that we all love about this angle is the fact that the line is so blurred. You know, we don't know what's a work, we don't know what's a shoot. I mean, it's all a work, but, you know, it's done in such a smart way that, you know, you're just so drawn in. And we talked about how that was a big part of the success that the WWF had during the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
And
You know what? I texted something to Punk that I later tweeted because it sounded really good.
yeah,
I said, like, when I was saying, hey, congratulations, I said, you know, hey, you are making smart fans wonder if they're really smart,
Right. Exactly.
and making them wish they weren't. Like,
Totally.
that was one of the comments I was
Absolutely.
getting, is that people were like, I don't want to know what's happening. Like, I just want to be entertained. And that's the way I feel. Like, I don't want to know what's real and what's not real. I just want to, you know, watch the show and really enjoy it.
I got to say, I love the fact that Punk tweeted
Yeah.
during Raw's WWE title tournament. He tweeted a response to a fan and said, "How can they be having a tournament when the champ is here?"
Yeah.
He's tweeting pictures
You know what?
of the belt.
I don't think I saw that tournament thing. I thought, okay, you know, obviously, you know, replacing, naming a new champion the next night is kind of lame. But I thought, okay, that's something that could be done.
Right.
After all, you know, I mean, I was given the Hardcore Championship, and I think at one point Triple H was given the
That's right.
you know, the World Championship. Like,
That's
you
right.
can reintroduce things and make them work. I had a feeling that they were going to go somewhere, and I was hoping they were, because the night before, it, you know, from all accounts and from what I saw earlier today, was just so good. But I don't think anybody saw that coming. And I think the thing I liked the most about watching the thing with Vince and Triple H was seeing how the audience went from mocking Vince and chanting, you know, na 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 na, goodbye,
Right.
to cheering for him. And
I think a thank you
when
chant.
Yeah.
and when Triple H said that, "I love you, Pop," my initial reaction was, "Ow, that's so corny."
Yeah.
And then immediately it was like, "This is the most touching thing." Like, I can't, honestly, like, I you know, when Vince, you know, the look on his face,
Yeah.
it was just like, you know, it was
Totally.
just priceless. And I think, you know, you guys were asking me, hey, you know, I heard you want to talk about this. I heard it might be, you know, a real life imitating art or art imitating life. It's like, you know what? If you want me to expand on that, I can't, because
Yeah.
I have no idea what, you know, what the behind the scenes are. I don't know what's real and what's not, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Well, I had a conversation earlier today, actually, with Sean Waltman, and he said that he got a really cryptic text from Triple H on Monday morning, and he didn't understand what the hell was what he was talking about. And he's, after I watched Raw, I understood. You know,
Yeah.
and he said to me, he's like, "Yeah, this is a shoot. You know, they're phasing him into
Yeah.
that role, but that's really what's happening. It's a situation where, you know, art is imitating life, and I think that's interesting because I don't think anyone saw. I mean, everyone thought Triple H would eventually take that chair, but we didn't think it was going to happen anytime
Yeah.
soon.
Exactly.
You know, and I guess that's kind of interesting for you, being a guy who's had so much on-screen time with Triple H, mind you, with Vince as
And
well,
Vince.
but with Triple
Yeah,
H especially, and you now being a free agent, that's got to open up a lot of ideas in your head, right?
The main idea was, geez, I probably shouldn't have stuck up for Lillian Garcia a couple of years ago. And I I probably should have written Triple H. He had a workout book that he wanted me to work on.
Yeah.
And it was like a time money thing. I'm like, I just don't have the time. So yeah, I probably would have taken that decision back. But it's pretty fascinating if like you said, if there appears to be a lot of reality to this.
Yeah.
I'd heard that Triple H was like the next guy in line. So it's so cool, and they have so many places they can go.
Yeah.
It looks like everybody's on board for just taking the fans on a great ride, which is what a wrestling show should be all about.
Is it necessary, Mick Foley, in this day and age, in 2011, when internet and spoilers and tweeting and all of that is such a huge intrinsic part of the business, is it imperative to work the smart fans in order to really sell?
No, I don't think so, because I think you can see in so many cases that when you overdo it, it means nothing. And so I don't think WWE is going to see this as an example of having to, work smart fans all the time. I think the reason it worked is because they don't play to them.
Right.
And I think it's I don't know what the percentage of fans we consider smart are. Most people just enjoy the show on its own merits, and they're not under the belief that they're watching UFC when they watch it, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And most people are going to, but I think even casual fans are going to love this. Like,
Absolutely.
I'd be shocked if the buy rate wasn't really good, especially for one of the shows that's considered, one of the non-Big Five.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to call it a minor show, but everything outside of that, that major five can be considered minor most of the time.
Yeah.
And I'd be surprised if ratings, weren't up. Like wrestling, WWE with this angle has made pro wrestling really cool again, in my opinion.
Well, there's no question about that. I just needed to say, because I'm one of those guys, and it's brought me back, and it's got me watching.
Yeah, because you pretty much tapped out for the last little
I
while.
was a little bit on the tapalas right there.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you, Mick, now that because we're talking about this new era, is you were definitely a major part of what we can consider, the hardcore era of mainstream professional wrestling, and sort of helped revolutionize it on mainstream television in the WWE. Is hardcore a thing of the past, in your opinion, or is there a place for it in modern day pro wrestling, especially considering the injuries that you've been through personally?
I think there's definitely a place for it, and even when it's toned down a notch, when it's done really, when I say toned down, I mean without excessive blood and gimmicks, but when it's done really well, I think it still works. I mean, the moment you say no holds barred, anything goes, it creates interest. And whether the hardcore match is in a cage, is in a cell, is in an elimination chamber, there's still added value to it when it's done correctly. And the key is to not overdo it and do it well when it's done. And I think in that case, you don't really need the blood as long as the intensity is there. So
I agree.
I still think there's a place for it, and there's obviously a place for smaller promotions to use some of those other things that WWE has chosen not to use. But again, moderation is the key.
I hear you.
You know what? I agree. When it comes to hardcore, when it comes to that sort of thing, to me, especially these days, less is more. Save it for your blow-offs. Save it for your grudge matches. But, I remember the post-Mankind, the post-Mick Foley hardcore era when everybody in the world got to hold that hardcore title, and the hardcore division became the comedy matches of the show.
Division, yeah.
Oh, it did, yeah. And I think it was smart to pull it when they did.
Yeah.
And some of it was really good comedy. I mean, some of it was really funny. But, the matches did become, a series of funny high spots and, Crash holding it.
Yeah,
Crash was great as the guy who held it 24/7.
Right.
But I think didn't Moolah hold it or
Everyone did. Everyone held it.
So, I think it's best that it's over Tommy Dreamer's mantle. And the last time that belt was used was when Randy Orton hit me on the head with an unbreakable plexiglass or something that split my head wide open, and nobody even saw a drop of blood because it was all coagulated in my dark hair.
Man.
Little known fact, Mick Foley, I am a 3-time hardcore champion.
Anyone else there have a shot at it?
I've canceled the 24/7 rule, though.
Okay.
I got to ask you this, and that is the one moment that really defines your career in so many ways, the moment that everyone in the world that's not even a wrestling fan has probably seen 100,000 times over, and that is, the King of the Ring, and that is that huge moment followed up by another huge moment in that one match. What I'm curious to know about is this, because this is something we've debated on this show several times philosophically. That one night, first tell me if you agree with this point. That one night made you an intrinsic part of the company, much more so than you ever were, and that one night made you a lot of money moving forward. Would you agree with that?
You know what? It didn't seem like it at the time.
Right.
It seemed like the character. Honestly, it seemed like the character was, was kind of down, and that I hadn't really kept up and tweaked it enough to make it interesting for people. But in retrospect, I don't think anybody realized what a big moment that was. Kevin Sullivan apparently just said, "Brother, that's it. The wrestling war's over." Like,
Yeah.
he was saying that it was such a big deal when it happened, and I don't think anybody really saw it. I remember Shawn Michaels coming up to me the next day, and he went out of his way to mention it on Raw. And he was like, if no one else is going to mention it, I figured I would, because it wasn't. I don't think it was seen as a huge event until time started going by. I think in my first book I compared it to the Willie Mays catch in the 1956 World Series. Like,
great comparison.
Started becoming bigger and bigger over time, and the popularity of the character just it crept along, and then it just kind of skyrocketed.
Yeah.
But I think that initial boost did come from that match.
How long did the after effects from that match linger? How long were you still nursing injuries? Do you still have echoes? Do you still have echoes of injuries from that spot?
I still got that gray tooth. That's the tooth that came out, pushed back in and never took.
Yeah.
And it's I'm really hesitant to fix it, although it would be a pretty easy, it'd have to be a replacement, because it is pretty symbolic of that big match. You just hope that when you meet somebody and smile that they're all familiar with it. Otherwise, it's some guys say they have a Bluetooth, but I actually do have a Bluetooth.
Really? I do brush my teeth. I fell off a cage. You never saw that?
Oh man, I'm like a obsessive hand washer and toothbrusher.
Yeah.
And thus far I haven't replaced that one.
I don't blame you.
If you could go back in time, Mick, would you do that night all over again the way it was, or would you say, you know what, I got banged up way too badly that night. I'm sure I could have made money in other ways.
Well, I don't want to act like I'm condoning it for somebody else, but in that time and place, it was, it really made a big difference.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
Until I went to TNA, it continued to be part of the Raw Open for, I guess, for 10 years.
That's
so,
right.
And it's still something people point out to this day, on YouTube and through DVDs. Like, kids who weren't even alive when I had that match are talking about it. So it's kind of like one of those stories that gets handed down. So yeah, it was definitely worth doing. But in wrestling phraseology, there's something known as the Daffy Duck bump. If you remember, Daffy and Bugs had a big contest, and Daffy ended up outdoing him, and Bugs conceded that Daffy had won the contest, but Daffy, as he ascends into heaven with a harp, says, I know, but I can only do it once."
For real?
That's
wow.
Now, you guys are too young to remember the Daffy Duck.
Oh,
bump.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm glad I could only do it once. And I'm running a little short on time. I got about 5 minutes left.
No problem.
Right.
No problem. And I want to ask you this very quickly. That night at the Royal Rumble with The Rock, and the what was it, 14 chair shots.
11.
11? Okay.
It was only 11. Yep.
That's it.
Any regrets?
Yeah.
Any regrets about that? I mean, just the fact that it was so much. I mean, so many shots to the head.
It was way too much. It was not supposed to be that many. I had no idea how much more it would hurt. With my hands behind my back.
Oh yeah.
My body kind of lost its ability to give with the blows. Not that that's like a magic cure-all, but that helps absorb some of it, and that was just not there. I mean, that first chair shot hurt so much worse than any chair shot I'd ever been given. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Like, I could not believe how bad that first chair shot hurt, and then there were 10. There were 10 more, and it was too much. I don't think. And I mentioned this in one of the books, it's not like fans who will come back and say, oh, I've seen that cell match 100 times. Almost nobody has seen that match more than a couple times. It's really not, it's really unpleasant, so, yeah, I wish that was a mistake. I make mistakes all the time, errors in judgment. Even, off the top of my head, I remember when I was fired from WWE in 2000 on the air.
Right.
Edge and Christian had kind of been like my, they'd been like my enemies, but also my cronies.
Right. When
I was the commissioner.
Yeah.
I thought when they came down with chairs that people would go crazy, thinking they were about to save me, and there was not that reaction at all. So, that's just an example of an error in judgment I've made.
Right.
And you just hope that, when you have a chance to, to do big things, that you're going to be right more often than you're wrong. But I was certainly not right that night.
Before we let you go, this rumor has been on the internet for at least a year, and it's picked up steam since you left TNA, and that is...
Does it involve me?
Mick Foley for anonymous Raw GM.
It's been you this whole time. We know how you like to tweet and email. It's been you.
Well, listen,
Come on.
I'm going to say two things. People have never seen me at the same place in the same time as Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And I've never been spotted at the same time, at the same place with as the Raw GM. But I will say that as much as I loved the thing on the air between Triple H and Vince, it did occur to me that, wow, all of a sudden that Raw GM spot doesn't mean nearly as much.
Good point.
I really think that they should play this along. And if it does turn out that I've been the Raw GM all along, that would be great. But I'm not. Okay. I have no knowledge whatsoever of what is going to happen, and I imagine. I mean, this is the last thing I'll say. Quelling rumors is I do think I'll be back with WWE at some time doing something somewhere down the road. But anyone who thinks there is anything more to it than that is not living. In my house. They may have ideas for me, but I'm not aware of it. But it's been very nice just to be asked, to comment, for example, on Corporal Kirshner, and and I went back and I contributed to one of their DVD releases. They'll be out soon, so I do think I'll be doing some stuff with them in the future, but I have no idea what it is.
No one's ever seen Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the anonymous Raw GM, or the technical producer of this show, Voodoo Drew, and Mick Foley at the same time. Because Voodoo Drew has he has a shocking resemblance.
He really does.
I'll be emceeing the Hall of Fame induction in Waterloo, Iowa, and Hacksaw is being inducted. So
there you go.
People might want to have their cameras ready.
It's all trick photography.
Hey, in the meantime, the entire nation of O wants to follow you on Twitter. Is it at Mick Foley?
It's at Real Mick Foley.
Real Mick Foley.
Everyone's got the real. August 26th at the Harbor Station Arena in St. John, New Brunswick. Tickets are available at CWIWrestling.com and at the Harbor Station Arena box office. This is a show you do not want to miss. In addition to Mick Foley, of course, all the other CWI regulars.
Big things.
CWI heavyweight champ Scott Steiner, if he still is at that point. Kevin Nash, X-Pac, the New Age Outlaws. So